All right, so today I wanted to run you guys through exactly what helped me start throwing harder, because I did have a big velocity jump, right? I posted a video yesterday about me being able to throw 95 in indoor bullpens, which is honestly some of the hardest that I've ever thrown indoors. You know, I don't think I've ever thrown harder than 95, maybe like a 96 in a bullpen, but you know, when I was more 97, 98 at my peak, I was outdoors, you know, in a professional organization environment. And so today I want to break down exactly what I did today I'm going to break down exactly what I feel like helped for me to increase pitching velocity. So I want to break it down into two parts, right? Mechanics and engine. Prior to this velo phase, I was doing more of a live AB phase, and so I wasn't too focused on my velocity. I thought it would just come. But there came to a point where I was stuck in the low 90s. In live ABs, I was probably like an 89, 92, which is still not bad for someone like myself who throws a lot harder in games. But, you know, I was like, look, like if I want to be upper 90s, then I have to push this. And I need to be like, you know, 95, 96 indoors if I want to have any type of chance of throwing 97, 98, right? And so the first thing was mechanics. For myself, it was like a 50-50 of, yes, mechanics help, but also the engine side really helped as well. So in terms of the mechanics, right, there were a couple things that I really focused on. So the first one was how my pelvis rotated, right? For some reason, I had come into the habit of, you know, just throwing and getting lazy with my pelvis, right? It wasn't getting through as aggressively as I once did. And there's a couple reasons for this. Maybe it's because my brain was guarding a little bit because my lower back, right? Yeah, also just like being lazy, right? Because I wasn't as focused on velocity. So what was happening was my pelvis would come through really late, and a lot of the time it would just come together with my upper body. You know, it would do this, and my shoulder would stay behind. So this would create what we call fake hip to shoulder separation, where, you know, your torso and your hips are going at the same time, and you're like kind of here, but your shoulder's back. So it seems like, and it looks like you're getting hip shoulder separation, right? But what we actually want is the pelvis to fire and this rib cage to be back. And you can feel so much more tension here, right? And so that's the first thing that I worked on. And one of the biggest things that helped me with this is getting my foot through. So what was happening was I'd be here and like, you know, front foot plants, and, you know, my foot didn't really do much, right? And so what I started to focus on was, okay, let's make sure at front foot plant, my foot has turned over, okay? And for me, this really helps because when my foot is turned over, then my whole pelvis is going to be open, right? And so it didn't really feel good for me to just like feel my pelvis rotate, because, you know, it kind of felt forced. And so I just focused on my foot. So it's like, okay, I need to get my foot over, and that's going to help my pelvis, right? And so I was able to ingrain this. I didn't do any type of like drills or anything. It was just, honestly, just instant feedback in a mirror and doing dry reps. I know it gets a bad reps these days, but I needed to see myself, okay, you know, I get here, and then bang, the hips are opening. Okay, sweet. Bang. Okay, so that's what I was doing. And the one thing that I will caveat with this, with hip shoulder separation and getting separation, is that you don't want to keep your shoulders closed, right? You don't want to like counter rotate. You don't want to be you don't want to do this, right? Where you're trying to counter rotate your upper body. What you want your upper body to really do throughout this is to stay relaxed, right? And let the lower body pull it. This is the kind of feel that you want, is like that, rather than, there's a big difference there, right? So here, versus, okay, because what happens when you try to stay counter-rotated is, you know, you're trying to rotate this way while your hips are trying to rotate this way, right? And so you lose a lot of energy because there's a big lag between here and when you can fire, right? True hip to shoulder separation comes from when this hip is going and the shoulders are rotating in the same plane and direction, right? They're all trying to rotate through, but the hips are just going a little bit quicker, right? So it's just bang. And so that's what I really started to ingrain into myself was, okay, foot, bang, right? It wasn't forced separation. It was just turn it over and throw. Okay, so that was the first thing. And the other thing that really helped me was getting more of this side bend, okay? Getting this, a little bit of a lean, okay? So why this helps me was because it's quite simple. I was just looking at what I did when I was throwing at my hardest, right? And what I did really well was stay back really well, right, with my upper body. These days I was kind of like leaning forward a little bit and kind of opening a little bit as well. And so just keeping this back allowed me to, not only keep my upper body closed for a little bit longer, right? It wasn't forced, it was still just relaxed, but relaxed, and then this will pull me. Rather than, if I was just here, and then even if I was relaxed and trying to stay closed, like I would kind of get into this position, right? Which isn't as good for pitching velocity. And so those are the two big things, was really getting into the side bend, right? Relaxing into it, and then letting the pelvis honestly drive the throw, right? Letting this and the rotation drive the throw, rather than, what I was doing previously was I was here and my pelvis wasn't really even going through, so I had to just brute force it with my upper body, right? I had to pull as hard as I could with my glove side, and then my arm would come through, and I would just, and I really did have a lot of arm pain. And now that I'm looking back at it, I realized that I just had bad, energy and bad patterns, right? Because I was overcompensating because I wasn't getting as much energy from my legs and up into my body, right? And so that's the two things on the mechanical side. And again, I'm a little bit more of, I guess, a higher level guy. And so I didn't have to revamp my mechanics, right? It was just like a couple small tweaks that helps. And that's what we really see with a lot of our athletes is guys who are more at a higher level, and even if they're not, right? Small tweaks in the mechanics create massive, massive effects in terms of velocity, because what you want to think about it is, ripple effect, right? Or the butterfly effect, where a small, tiny thing influences everything else, right? And so if you can get your pelvis through even just a little bit more, then everything here is going to change, right? Because you have more energy up the chain. And so, it might feel like unbelievable to think that, one mechanical change is going to help you gain, 3, 4, 5, even we've had 10 miles an hour increases, but that's because of the ripple effect, right? Just one positive change can create so many more positive changes in the delivery, okay? So that's number one, the mechanical side. And then the lifting side, right? What I started to get back into was peak power training and more just like really heavy type stuff, right? And this, I think, is more, for myself. Like, it's athlete dependent. Some athletes start to throw really hard when they go light and go really quick. For myself, it's like I need a combination of really heavy but extremely explosive as well, right? Think of something like a, I guess just like a normal trap bar deadlift, even though I don't do it. But this is probably the most relatable to where, if you load it up, right? You load it up as hard as, 3 rep max or something. And then the focus is just get it up as quickly as possible. Go from relaxed, so you're relaxed, and then get it up as quickly as possible, right? That's what I did, but more with the belt squat. And I did a lot of unilateral stuff, right? So I did a rear foot elevated belt squat where, the weights were at the bottom. It was a dead. So it was kind of like a single leg deadlift almost. So I'm right here, and then when I'm going, I go from relaxed to, and I'm trying to get it up as quickly as possible, right? And so one of the big things for me is, I like to feel that heavy weight, because that's what I feel in the pitching delivery as well. In my back leg and, my front foot, like all of this, it feels like I have a lot of weight, right? It doesn't really feel like, it feels more like a like a deadlift when I do these things, right? More than, kind of like a light jump, right? That's for me though. When I get into a really good back leg load, it feels like I'm almost doing like a single leg squat, right? That's kind of how much tension I have. And then when my front foot hits, it feels like that belt squat, right? A really heavy belt squat where I'm just hitting it as quickly, as hard as I can, right? And so again, this is athlete dependent, but for me, heavy plus speed has always really worked well. And obviously I did a bunch of other things in terms of the power side, but that was the biggest thing for me was, even VBT stuff, like being more in the 0.5 to 0.8 range. But again, it wasn't just like continuous reps, right? It's not just doing this. It's like really focused on, okay, I'm relaxed. And then pull as hard as you can, right? Because this is just training the central nervous system, your brain's ability to send signals to the relevant muscles to be able to fire, right? And that's, again, what I feel in the delivery is just relax, bang, right? I'm relaxing throughout the delivery, and then at release, I'm putting all of my effort into this pitch, right? That's what I'm feeling. And so that's why I do that. But in terms of other stuff in the weight room, the biggest thing for me was getting into uncomfortable positions, right, with my spine. And so for myself, there was a little bit of timidness in my lower back because I've had a bunch of surgeries. And so putting myself in a little bit more uncomfortable position, like a Jefferson curl, right, or barbell side bends, right? Those are really, really tough. And something that I would have been terrified of beforehand when I had lower back injuries. And just doing those helped me get into better positions in the pitching delivery, right? I was talking about the side bend. Like, I don't think I'd be able to get into that position very well if I didn't train it with these, barbell side bends, because it is quite a stressful position to be in for me right here, right? Previously, if I did this, then I'd honestly tweak my back. That's how bad it was. I was like, oh my gosh. And then it will tighten up, right? And so those are the kind of things. And also, I gained a little bit of weight. Now, this is something that, again, athlete dependent, right? But I was more 190, and now I'm a little bit closer to 205, 210, right? And so I think this is just a byproduct of starting to lift heavier and getting into more of that like power phase, like, focus more on velo. And, it wasn't really a conscious decision to where I was like, look, I want to get to 210. It was just like, look, I'm going to eat as much as I feel like, and then, I'm going to lift heavy and see what it kind of comes out to. And I think the weight has really helped as well, because it's increased momentum. But again, it's athlete dependent. Mass doesn't always equal gas, right? I think it has helped because I'm lifting a lot heavier, which means that I'll probably put on some more muscle, right? And lean mass will help velocity, but mass in general, if I just got fat and I'm 230, which I have been in the past, and I just got fat and I was 230, I thought mass equals gas. I started throwing slower because I move less quick, right? But now I feel like I'm, honestly in one of the best shapes of my life. I'm heavier, I'm stronger, and I'm more powerful than ever before. And that's why I think my velocity is starting to show, peak velocities. And so the way forward is to really keep going and, exposing myself to these things, right? And so like exposing myself to these high CNS throwing, keep ingraining these mechanical patterns because I haven't mastered them yet. It's very hard to master something within a couple weeks. Keep pushing the weights in the weight room and improving my ability to go from a relaxed to contracted position as quickly as possible, right? And so those are the things that have helped, and hopefully you got some value out of this. If you have any questions, just send me a message on Instagram. The link's down below. But I'll see you tomorrow.